Hey y'all! So I am here. My name is Shar, and this is the first episode of Colourisma. So, Colourisma is a show where we discover our dreams and then make them happen. So, yeah, this is the start of something I plan on doing for a while, and kind of the thing that I wanted to do on this show that I hadn't seen done a lot on other shows isn't just exploring already successful artists' careers and seeing how they got there, though that is important. I feel like finding people who know what their dreams are or helping people discover what those dreams are and then lifting them up is crucial. There are so many things out there right now that are trying to do just that, and it's really difficult for those artists to still get seen. And I find that so frustrating personally, and I feel like this is my way of giving back and trying to make a difference. So, yeah, just to sum all that up, I have all my little post-it notes here with all my notes for the next hour. I planned on this being an interactive show, especially in the future. I tried to get the word out, but the aforementioned difficult to try to get people to hear what you have to say and see you, and yeah, algorithms. We'll get into all of that. Um, yeah, so what is Colorisma? It's something I came up with a long time ago now. I've started and stopped it several times throughout my time working on the property. I came up with it by combining color and charisma. Colorisma. I thought it was cute, and I actually started it way back when, probably in about 2008 or 9, and I started a little blogger blog, which is still on there, and I was doing articles and trying to get. That was the thing at the time, was to have a blog, and you had to be there. But yeah, so after a couple years doing that, I did then try my own web show, and that kind of again petered out after a little while. So a few years later, fast forward to 2020, why not? You know, I just said the words 2020, and yeah, it's been a year, y'all. Can you believe it that it is only 7 months? Has it been? It's like time is both very fast and very slow this year. But yeah, so Colorisma. Um, yes, so I do intend in the future to have this be a very interactive show. I also want to have interviews with people. Uh, Something I want to do a little different in interviews moving forward is quite a bit different than I've seen in other shows. If you aren't sure what your dreams are, I want to help you get there. It's something I've done on a personal level with people. As soon as I hear they want to do something, they're creative in some way, uh, and I think my friends can attest to this. The first thing I ask is, "Oh, do you have a Patreon? Oh, what's your Etsy? Oh, do you have a website? Oh, do you want to do this like as a hobby or?" So that's like where my brain goes. I really like supporting people and making their passion come true. Now that can change over time. I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not about just picking one path and then just charging forward and never analyzing whether or not that path is still a good fit, or figuring out whether or not that you even like that thing. There's so many reasons why we choose the things we choose, and some of those reasons don't have anything to do with us. They have to do with outside external influences, and we internalize those external influences so much to the point where we think that's us telling us that's what we want, and really it's society or parents or our significant others or other family friends, institutions. And I find that it takes a lot of work to dig under all of that and then figure out, okay, what is it that I really want out of life? Because it's a big topic, and I think it's really important to discuss that and figure out that answer. I want to try to help people with that answer and actually figure out what that means to each individual person. And I think doing interviews with that in mind is going to be a much different experience than necessarily just telling someone's story and how they got to where they are now. Because sometimes people have a whole path about where they got to, and as it turns out, a few years later you get back to them and they're in a completely different path. And it's very interesting to me. I keep seeing this for a long time now, that I'll follow someone's career over time many years ago, and they're in a completely different path and happier generally, hopefully, than they were when kind of the success, what looked like success to the conventional definition of such. Like, it's interesting to me. So yeah, I want to explore that in different kinds of interviews. So if you don't know what your dream is, if you're trying to figure it out, that's what I want to talk about. If you feel like you're already living your dream, what does that look like? Is it ever evolving? I think so. I was at one point kind of using a tagline of making it. I'm using air quotes a lot. For this channel, and I kind of immediately started to back away from that. It's not that I don't feel like I kind of understand that word, and it has a not word, but that phrase has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people, and I identify it. Some people, okay, all right, we're about to get real. All right, this is how this show's gonna go. So I saw a documentary before, and I believe it was called something along the lines of just making it. And it was talking about the art world, and I feel like some of the people that were interviewed, who in my definition is successful, and a lot of different people's definition of successful, kind of just blew off the term. They're like, oh, you never make it, blah, blah, blah. I find that a little disingenuous, to be completely honest. I feel like that definition can change, and that should be acknowledged. But I feel like there's this kind of thing in the art world, especially, that people can't seem to acknowledge their own success. Some people call that imposter syndrome. Some people call it, whatever. It doesn't really matter what you want to label it as, but I do find it interesting that kind of is a common theme I've seen over and over again. So I want to take that theme and explore it, talk about making it, but I also feel like a more important question I decided was, what is your dream? Because I know I'm guilty of this. My dreams are too small. I think that is true for a lot of people. I feel like there's very few people that'll just come right out of the gate and know exactly what they want, and to the fullest extent of what is possible. And sometimes even when you say your dreams and you're like, that's it, that's the biggest thing I can think of, it's still not that much. I know that's exactly true for me. Like, if I could just have my own place and have a horse, I'd be pretty happy with that. That's not like the most giant dream that anyone's ever thought of before. So I feel like it definitely needs to be pushed. Our dreams need to be pushed and seen what is really out there, and really shown what it is that we want, and to really say those things out loud, and then see if we can't make that a reality. All right, so first post-it note down, got another one. So today and some other times throughout this, I am planning on doing what I'm going to dub, at least for a while, and unless somebody feels like it's really silly, solo-sode. So this is my first solo-sode. I'm not interviewing anyone, it's just me. And I do want feedback from you all, so if you have a topic you want to discuss in the art world, then I would love to hear it, and I would love to see what you think. I would like to discuss those thoughts and figure out. Sorry, I'm trying to read the chat here. My computer. So I have a weird setup at the moment, but we're making it work. We're making it work. It's not working, but we're gonna make it work. If that isn't the definition of my life, it's not working, but we're gonna make it work. All right. So yes, I will get to this question, and then I'll move on to kind of my path and how I've gotten to this point. I got a little bit into that about talking about colorisma and specifics around that, but let's see what is this question. If you're pursuing an art career, would you consider bringing on speakers in the future who are following dreams on a different path? So this is mainly a art centric, but I'm going to have a very broad definition of that. I was thinking about that yesterday, actually, when I was preparing for this episode. I was thinking about people who might try to say that they aren't creative. And I am kind of one of those people. I like to draw and paint, but I don't know that I would necessarily call myself creative on those fronts. But I might be doing myself a little disservice by saying such. So, I can put your question up on the screen. There you go. So, yes. And I was thinking about those people who say they may not be creative at all. And when I thought about it, I kind of thought, okay, so maybe they don't paint or draw, maybe they don't do photography, or they're not an actor, all the typical creative things, but maybe they love gardening and cultivating a small plant from a little baby sapling all the way up to, a beautiful, gorgeous, fully grown plant. Like, that's pretty creative. Like, that's literally creating something. Like, that's amazing. And then people who maybe work in like construction or something, you are creating something. So I feel like we are all creators. And on that other kind of side path, I did want to get into as well, we are also consumers, and every single person is both. And I think that's important to kind of mention, because I think we get sucked into feeling like we are just consuming, and sometimes that can be frustrating, especially when we want to be creating. But I think there's a cycle, a flow within yourself, and you just got to kind of accept it and not let it overrun your life, but with some degree of control and understanding what's going on. I feel like you can be in a creative mindset where you are creating, and then you can be a consumer of creativity, and both are very important. As artists know, we need people to consume what we do. If we don't, you get issues, you get all, I think that's where a lot of vulnerabilities and insecurities come from is that. So back to this question, because I will meander all day. So let's see. Yes, so different path. Like I said, I do feel like I'm going to focus more on the visual arts, but I am open to photographers coming on the show, or sculptors, just 3D animation. And yeah, I'm really I'm focused in the circle of people where I am, and that is a lot of visual art. I'm a visual artist myself, so that will be my primary focus, but I will also look into different kinds of things, and be open to that for sure. The main thing I want to focus on is following people's dreams and helping them get there, because I think that is a topic in the conversation that is sorely lacking. And when it does come up, I notice there's a lot of emotions that come up. A lot of people, I don't know if they want to do this on air. That's the other thing with this experiment, is it might get pretty emotional talking about what you really, really want in life, and not pretending like either you'll never get it, or you've always had it, or whatever. Because I think there's another thing with people who have a certain degree of success, and they think to themselves, well, I have the thing that I always wanted, now what? They may or may not feel fulfilled from it, having actually achieved it. They may then question, well, is this what I always wanted, or is it what I thought I wanted? And that those are very valid questions, and I think that's something in anyone's career that you should ask. I feel like it's a really important question to ask right from the beginning, because if you do that at the very beginning, then that is going to be something that you can build your whole career moving forward on. And to have that be slightly flexible as well with what your dream is would be very valuable, to be able to have that in your business plan, to be versatile and to be able to change and pivot based on new information. So yes, all of that. It's a lot. So as far as my own journey, how did that happen? I have always painted and drawn. I told people I just never put the crayon down. I think we all do as kids, and then some people will, unfortunately, I feel, be told that they're not good enough, or they should work on something else or focus on something else. And I find that really unfortunate that happens. And I was fortunate, very fortunate, that everyone in my life, to my parents, to my siblings, to my teachers, even in kindergarten and first grade. I have a little story I'll share. This is probably one of the things that, in my opinion, cemented me being an artist. I knew from this point forward that this is what I was good at, and this is what I would do for the rest of my life, no matter what. So I had a kindergarten teacher named Miss Kastner, and she was so inspirational. She always made every single day going, I'm not just like kind of remembering what my parents told me. I'm remembering actually being in kindergarten. And every single day was really good in that class. She was very good about teaching us all the different things. I still remember learning about the weather, like learning what like rain and like all the different types of weather, and then the days of the week. But yeah, anyway, I would draw in that class, and she'd be so supportive and really call me out on it, like in a good way, and saying like, oh, look at I love your drawing. And I would be very happy about that. So moving forward to the next year, in first grade with Miss Clum, I I wish I had this image. I can't find it anywhere. I've looked in all my like old files and stuff. I'll keep looking, but I drew this image of this dog under a tree. And it was like a little willow tree with the little branches hanging down. And I showed it to Miss Clum, and I was so proud of it. And she immediately took that picture, went across the hallway to Miss Kastner and showed it to her. And then both of them came back and were like, "We can't believe you drew this drawing. This is so great." I'm sure it looked just whatever, right? Like it was a first grader's drawing. But the fact that two adults saw my drawing, loved it so much, and then told me that they loved, like, this is the power that you have in someone's life, especially the younger they are. Like, it was so impactful to me that now, 30 years later, I, like, that cemented this for me in my life. So I'm really, really grateful that I knew from such a young age that this was the path for me. Now, I didn't necessarily know that this was a career, but that did start me basically drawing from first grade to 12th grade, like solid. In every single class, everything, I had my sketchbook every single year. I would fill out like a 70-page sketchbook, like not just with sketches, not the normal like little doodles on the side of lined paper, but like full illustrations. And I'd work on like one every single week for the full week with colored pencils. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I managed to get away with it up until 11th grade because I always got A's and B's. So my teachers would be like, I mean, I'd be mad, but so I also got really used to having a crowd of people around me and staring at my drawings. So a lot of people, when they say that they're afraid of having people look at them draw, like I had to get over that because like that was 4th grade for me. And I was like a quiet, meek, timid, like from 1st grade to 12th grade, that's how I was. Before that, I was like I am now. And then after that, I got over it and I'm back to, I guess, my normal. But yeah, so up until 11th grade, I managed to draw in every single class all day long. So I had a lot of experience. I went ahead and had to put that on pause in 11th grade when, unfortunately, chemistry class kind of kicked my butt, and my teacher pulled me aside very politely and was like, "You know, Shar, I know you love drawing, but you're kind of getting D's in this class, so maybe draw." And he didn't even tell me to stop. He said, "Maybe draw a little less." And I was like, all right, fair. I managed 11 years without really getting this talk, so sure. I was a super rebel kid, you know, like, as you can clearly tell. But yes, so I did that all throughout my childhood. So it came as a slight realization in 10th grade, actually, when we started kind of having talks about careers and moving forward and college and everything. And we were in, this was the year 2000, y'all, like just to show how old I am. And how long I've been at that. And that is going to be a major theme of this whole entire series. But, so it was the year 2000. Netscape was our web browser, and we were doing career consultations, like surveys kind of things. And of course, mine said, you know, art. That it wasn't very specific, but it was like, you should be an artist. And I was like, I know. And even though I drew every single day, all day, in every class, it didn't really dawn on me that that was like going to be my career, because I just never thought that far forward in the future. So once I got like that confirmation, I was like, okay, so let's think about this for real. Okay, artist, what is that? So I started looking up because like it was to turn into a little research project. So you got that assessment and then you were supposed to research it. So I actually started doing real research into being an artist in the year 2000, which it was not like the landscape of today. There was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram. You had to really actually research. There was some Encyclopedia Britannicas being brought out. This was old school. Yes, so went ahead and researched, and I found an artist named Carl Brenders. And I had been aware of his work, but I hadn't really studied it that much. And he's like a photorealistic wildlife painter. And kind of the image that sticks in my mind, as far as the first image that I was like, I can't believe that this is a painting, was an image that he did of a skunk with a pumpkin. And it doesn't sound like much, but it's a really, really cool image. Like, it looks so real. And I realized that is what I want to do. That wildlife art. There wasn't really much in the way of any other kind of information about it, other than him, and there wasn't a way to contact him or anything. I just that was my solution then. Okay, so what do we do now? So I go up to my guidance counselor. I feel bad. Not really, but I go up to my guidance counselor and she's like, so did you decide? Did you know what you want to do? And I said, yes, I did. I want to be a wildlife artist. And she was like, okay. She had no idea what to do with that. Like, graphic designer, maybe she could have done she could have something. That was so outside the realm of understanding or any of that. She just kind of went, okay, well, are you taking art classes? And I'm like, I sure am. All of them, all the time. And she's like, okay, great, good luck. And that was my pep talk for my guidance counselor for that. So I've never had a very clear definition and clear path to the career that I really decided, either then or now. It all feels like that. Like, no one has really like taken charge and was like, this is what you need to do. It's not like a doctor where you go to school, you follow the curriculum, and then there are steps, very guided steps to making that happen. Not for me. Never for me. So yes. Let's see if I'm on my little thing. So still talking about the career path. So that was just high school. That was like, I graduated in 2003, and I was like, I'm going to be an artist. And it kind of morphed a little bit away from wildlife art to more like cartoons and furry stuff and whatever was at the time. I was just like, I see people making a career at this. I want to do it too. So I tried. I didn't get anywhere though. I kind of fumbled around with that until about 2007. Found myself in Norway at that point, and I was working at a video game company. So I thought, well, I got here somehow. I guess the path to being a independent freelance artist is through being a studio artist. And I firmly believe that there is a ladder, and first you became a studio artist, and then you did that for a while, and then you could eventually move on to being a freelance independent artist. And I thought that was the path, because I saw other people do it, and that was the only reason why I thought that. So I really tried to to make that happen, and through a lot of circumstances that I feel were partially under my control, but a lot more that weren't, I did not end up hitting that path. And I tried for several years, and finally in 2009 I moved back to the US, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to be an independent artist. I'm going to work in the fantasy art field. So I literally packed up my bags, moved to the US. I went from a job where I was making $40,000 a year to zero, because that's how much I wanted to follow my dreams. Dang it! So I left everything, and I went back and I moved back in with my parents, like just the most stereotypical millennial you could be. And this is basically when I started Colourisma. At the original point, I was trying that. I was trying to move into the fantasy art realm, in fantasy art and illustration. I was getting a more clear idea of what I wanted to do, but it was murky. So from like 2009 to 2011-ish, I really tried, y'all. I really tried to be somebody in the fantasy illustration career. Like, I tried so hard. I remember, I still have it. I have a document of a Google spreadsheet of over 500 different companies and people that I emailed to try to get work over that period of time. And I just kept adding to it, and I would sort it by whether or not they responded, and then get back to them every 6 months. And just, I did it all. I was on it for 2 years, and I think I made $5,000 in 2 years. So that was rough. I saw that was not getting me to where I wanted to be. So I pivoted, and going back to like my wildlife artist roots, I decided to then move forward with pet portraits. Not just pet portraits, pet caricature, because I had never seen that before. And I started getting into things that, like, I've tried following this path. I tried following this make-believe ladder that I thought existed. Let's try something else. And I saw pet portrait artists make thousands of dollars with their creations. And I saw professional caricaturists in the field who were being hired all over the place. And I was like, put them together and I will get success. And while I got like a teeny bit of notoriety and recognition for that, it did not come in the form of like getting enough to move out and be on my own and do my own thing and be successful in the way that I want it to be. So again, I tried that from about 2012 to about 2013, late like 2013, 2014. And then I think I finally kind of gave up the ghost. I don't know. Is that a weird, that's a weird phrase, right? But I kind of gave that up around, like, for sure, around 2015. And then I tried to get back into fantasy illustration because I thought that was really where I belonged. And I was like, I'm better artist now. I learned a lot from this pet portrait stuff. And it wasn't that I disliked it. I noticed there's this trend of like, I'll do pet portraits for a little while and then I will do something else. And it wasn't like that for me. I really did enjoy it. I really just couldn't survive off of nothing, though. Like, or not nothing, but not enough. Like, $200 a month wasn't going to cut it. And it was like, as much as I knew how to promote myself and push and email lists, and I am like, marketing is a hobby for me. So I read a lot of blogs, and I get really down into the rabbit hole of marketing tips and tricks and long scrolling pages of marketing copy, and I know all about all that kind of stuff, and I really tried to make that happen. And so when that didn't work out the way I wanted, and it wasn't getting me to where I wanted to be, I decided, okay, I moved and got a client. I was very client based. I was like, you know what? Let's not worry so much about what I'm calling myself and making it a very specific pointed genre, and just kind of like make multiple genres and have lots of little boxes, and I just put the right artwork into the right box and then send that box to the right company. And I tried that for a while, and that was like 2015 to 2017. And that also didn't work. Y'all sensing the theme here. So I hate saying it didn't work, because I did get work. It just wasn't sustainable. And that is something that is so frustrating to me, because I feel like I developed my skills to the point where it was enough, according to all of the literature, all of the advice, the art directors I was showing it to. The thing that was frustrating, though, is that because I didn't have like a set goal, a set dream, which is why I'm kind of like all about this, and why I will be all about this in this show. Because I didn't have a set path, I felt almost annoyed by the criteria that other people reasonably were asking of me, which is, I would get a lot of comments from a lot of different art directors saying, your work is good, we like it, we can't use it. And because it wasn't exactly what they wanted or needed, because it wasn't the book cover format or the RPG format or special card format, it wasn't like exactly in their wheelhouse. I was trying to create generic artwork, generic fantasy artwork for anyone to use for any reason. And because it didn't fit the exact mold that they needed for their projects, they couldn't really see, they weren't sure, and they didn't want to take a chance on someone who didn't have an established career. And I get that. But it was really frustrating, because what I felt like I was getting told all the time was, make a bunch of free art for this very specific thing. And because I didn't really care about the category I was in, like I didn't care that I was just going to be a book artist, or just a, RPG artist, or just a card, fantasy card artist. I wanted to do all of it. But because I wanted to do all of it, and I didn't really drill down and make very specific artwork for each one, I felt like I was being asked for a lot of labor, unpaid labor, that it's not that I didn't want to do, it's just that I wanted to make a career out of it, not just, I had already spent the years learning. So it was a really frustrating time, and it took a while for me to realize, like, that's not really how you build a career. So I ended up taking that time, getting completely burned out, and I took 2017 off. I didn't stop drawing, but I stopped posting on social media so much. I tried to distance myself away from the pet portrait stuff. I still got occasionally people who knew me from then messaging me and saying, hey, do you still want to? And I would work with people who directly messaged me, but I stopped trying to promote it anymore. I would get in like little financial hiccups, so I would try to do a little promotion, like, hey, take in commissions now, please commission me. And I did that from time to time, and really, honestly, I just needed the break. I didn't like quit social media or anything at the time, but I just really needed that break, a clean break away from fantasy art, away from pet portrait stuff, away from the confusion behind all of it, and a lack of direction. And I was like, I'm going to take this year, didn't quite focus on this exactly like this, but I'm going to take this year to just explore whatever I want to explore, and not name it, not put it in a box, and just see what happens. And that year, I really did all of the challenges that we all know and we all follow. I did Mermaid, and I did Junicorn, and I did Smogist, and I did all these Inktober, and I did all these challenges. And what I came to really realize is there was a project, there was one piece of artwork that had gotten good comments a long time ago that I had done. And at this point, I had done this piece back in 2013, and I really liked it. I really still liked it. And that's another thing I'm going to harp on this channel. Like your art. Like it. You like your art. Stop disliking your art. Oh, pet peeve. Like your art. If you get nothing else from this video, like your art. So I did this piece back in 2013, and I still really liked it. I loved the concept. It was fun. It was the most fun I kind of had doing a single piece since I did it. And I was like, I didn't feel forced to do it. I didn't make myself do it. The prompt was just this. It was fantasy self-portrait. That was the prompt. It was like on this old forum, I think, that doesn't even exist anymore. And I years later, I even tried to find the forum and it was gone. And I was like, I still had this image though, and I loved it. And I was like, let me explore this, because it literally was nothing but just all of my favorite things packed together into a single image. And it was the thing that changed my life. And when I started developing that, I had a break kind of in August 2017 to October, and when kind of September rolled around, because people were doing Sketchtember in preparation for Inktober, so they'd do the sketches in September and then ink them in October, which is super awesome, by the way, if you want to go that route. And so that's what I did. So I took random prompts. No, actually, I think the prompt list comes out a bit earlier, or at least it did that year. So I took the prompts that were given for Inktober and I did sketches for it, and I developed these characters. And that is where the Golden Troop came from. Super proud of that name, by the way. Just gonna humble brag on that a little bit. I love that name. I am a big fan of names that aren't gonna date themselves. For instance, How I Met Your Mother. As soon as that, like, that has like a cutoff. Like, there's a clear, defined. You can't really move past. Like, once they explain How I Met Your Mother, then the show's pretty much over, right? Like, I wasn't even a super big fan of the show, but that is like the most like exacting point of. If you're gonna name something, make it like have, unless like that's the whole point, and you're doing a very targeted short series or something. But like, if you want something with longevity, you gotta name it with longevity. Another gripe of mine. But anyway, so I came up with the Golden Troop, and it literally is nothing but a mix of my wildlife, a mix of my pet portraits, a mix of my pet caricatures, a mix of all the things that I've loved my whole life, a mix of things that I don't really see other people doing. And even though I am turning this into a webcomic, it is not something that is typical. It is not a typical scene. It's not a typical era that I'm depicting. And in fact, I'm pretty certain that you've never heard of the Achaemenid Empire. You've heard of the Greek Empire. You've heard of ancient Egyptians. This happened at the same exact time as those, but you've never heard of it. And it has its own unique art style. Look it up. It's amazing. I've never seen it depicted on any popular media. 300 did ancient Persians no justice. Yeah. I love this era. It is a time where I did a lot of research into looking this up, and it's not just that you haven't heard of it, it's that there's not much to hear about. It's very frustrating looking this up. Finding an era in time where 500 years went by in relative peace and harmony in a territory that at the time housed, I believe it was, well, I'm not going to say numbers because I'll probably get it wrong, but it was the biggest population of people in the world at the time. And this time was 2,500 years ago. And it was a population of people that were very different. Not in a melting pot sense, but like they just let people do their thing in the different areas they were located, and then they just kind of like said, okay, you're part of us now. And they're like, oh, do we have to do anything? And they're like, just pay taxes. It'll be fine. I'm simplifying, and I'm still learning about it, but it was one of the only times in history where a bunch of different, very different, varied people lived all under the same empire peacefully. I think there's a lot we could take away from that and learn about it now. So this is the setting that I decided to have my characters. I wanted to develop something that I think a lot about. I am okay, so I said I was getting real earlier. I'm about to get really real now. So I not only, okay, the camera did something weird, so hopefully it's okay now. If you can hear me, let me know in the chat if you're listening still. Great, now my brain just was like, I was gonna get to something happened, and then trying to remember. Come on, brain, come on. The really real, oh, yes. So not only do I think a lot about where do we go when we die, I think questions that nobody asks, like where was I before I was born? And this comic answers that. It is a past life of mine, starring me. Hello. And I have a horse who is a jerk, and a cheetah who is lovely, quite lovely. And great, you can still hear me. And also, and that's just so far if you read the comic. Coming up, though, eventually I will be introducing 2 more characters, one of which is a Saluki and one of which is a golden eagle. And those are my favorite animals. Also, I love orca whales, but I'm not sure how to like seamlessly transition those into the ancient Persian desert. I'll find a way, but yeah, so that is my concept. That is what I'm doing. It is something that you don't see a lot. While you do see some comics tackle ancient Greece, and you see others comics, web comics tackle somewhat the ancient Egyptian empire, I'm kind of a lot off in my own kind of research world, just doing my thing over in ancient Persia and the Achaemenid Empire. It's really intimidating because not a lot of people know about it, so I want to do it justice, but also not a lot of people know about it, so I do all of this research and all this reading, and I still don't know some basic things. Like, I don't know what a typical everyday person wore. I just don't know. All of the artwork depicted of that era only show royalty. So I can kind of like extrapolate from that and like, okay, so that's what like the fanciest of the fancy wore. So take that down to like average, level people, and I guess I know, and I kind of like take a little bit of like what the ancient Egyptians wore, and then like the ancient Greeks, and kind of like somewhat in between there a little bit. But honestly, a lot of this is guessing for me, and it's a little frustrating, but it's my passion. It's the thing that I probably have changed, and if you are watching this, you can kind of sense like a little more excitement in my demeanor than when I was talking about just the fantasy art or just the pet caricatures. And that's because this is my dream, and this is my passion, and I've been working on it like on an official capacity since 2018. It's now 2020. This was going to be my year. This is going to be a lot of people's year. I really wanted to push the comic, and I am, but every stage of 2020 has been a trial, and it has been very difficult. I've had a experience that has been impacted a lot by the current goings on, and it's been made more challenging by being an extreme empath and feeling for other people going through a lot more than me, and it's been a challenge to continue to do this thing that I am now so passionate about. I know exactly where I want to be. I know I have big dreams for this project. I'll just say it. I want to see this on Netflix or some kind of streaming service. I want to animate this series. I want it to be a fully animated. I want to be the director or the producer. I want to realistically depict animal behavior in a way, and not only just animal behavior, but like the behavior between animals and people. I'm tired of those horses that are just like, all right, jump on your horse and run around, and that's all there is. It's like, I've been riding for 10 years now, and I've loved horses even longer, and it doesn't quite go like that. Like, no. And animal ownership and pet ownership is challenging, and I never see that really realistically depicted. The best example I've seen is How to Train Your Dragon, and that is a major inspiration for me. But yeah, so it's gonna kind of be like She-Ra mixed with How to Train Your Dragon with like my life and like tossed in there in the ancient Persian Empire. So enjoy. But yeah, so I had some other points, but we're actually getting close to that. Took a little longer than I anticipated, so that's fine. More talking points for later. I was starting this thing and I was like watching the minutes as I was like in my talking announcer voice mode. I get this way. It's like I see the camera, and then it's like if it's just me or it's just like someone else, I'm like, whatever. And then like when I know it's like I'm on a camera thing that's going to be recorded, I have to be very proper and speak exactly correctly. And I hopefully have chilled out on that, and I'd like more of kind of how I am at this moment in this, and not so proper moving forward in interviews and such. It's like cash serious. But yeah, so some points that I want to move forward with this. The importance of not giving up. You heard my career. You've heard what it's been like. At the moment, I am making $80 a month on Patreon. It's not enough to be able to make a career of this. I love this property so much, though, that I will do it no matter what. And that is what really changed between, I mean, all the way back to like when I was doing like the furry stuff, because it was like popular, and that's what other people who like to draw animals did. So that's what I was doing. So all the way back to that, I did it. I drew cute little characters for people, and it was a job. I did fantasy art. It was a job. I did my pet caricatures, and while I did love them, it was a job. This is a passion. This project that I have, there's a switch that changes in your mind when you go from a job to your passion. And I want everyone to have it. I want everyone to have this feeling. It is the thing that's motivating me now. And throughout all of this time, which sometimes it's very hard to divorce the idea between the 17 years I've been trying to make a go at this, and only the 2 years I've been starting this particular project, specific web comic project. It is very hard to like take those two concepts and separate them, because my brain will often go, but I've been trying this for so long. And I will have 17 years of frustration build up because something I'm trying now isn't working. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that time, but also step back and realize, okay, yes, that is true. However, we gotta focus in on what we're doing right now. And what I'm doing right now is going to take time. And if you talk to other webcomic artists, they generally say a webcomic doesn't really start to like bloom and take off. And that's with weekly updates. I'm only able, due to time restrictions, to do bi-weekly updates on my comics. So weekly updates, some webcomic artists say it takes 5 to 6 years to really get off the ground. I've seen a webcomic blow up within 1 year though. I see it a lot. I've seen it over and over. And then I also see artists who do one project, next project, then that project. Like by the fourth project, it starts blowing up. So it takes time, and it's very frustrating. And it's even more frustrating when you absolutely know what you want to do and you can't get to where you want to be. And you know what that looks like. And you've even said those dreams out loud to people. And even though you know exactly what you want, and you're doing all the things that people say to do, and you're doing the weekly mailing list, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, and you're doing the ads, and you're doing this, and it still isn't quite getting you to where you want to be, the focus to continue despite the frustration, to realize like this still is my passion even though it's difficult. That's what I want to help people with. That's what I want Colourisma to be about, and that is the reason why I'm doing this. I want to help support those like in a position of myself, because I understand if no one else gets it, if no one else gets you, if no one else gets the frustration, I get it. Trust, I get it. And I want to help other artists in my same position. And I think there's a ton of artists that are further along than I am, at least in notoriety and in their careers and in their, success stories, their personal success stories. And I want to, talk to those people, but I also want to help people who are in the same boat as me. They know what they want. They know their passion. They know exactly where they want to be and what their success path looks like. They just need help getting there. I want to help. That is what I want to do. And then not only that, but if you're just starting out, if you were me circa year 2000, Y2K, I want to help those people too. Because if I could have like started the Golden Troop back when I did that image in 2013, I'd probably be in a totally different path now. But I do firmly believe that I needed to go through each one of those like periods of time, trying something that ultimately wasn't really going to work out. I needed each one of those failures before I could get to the point where I felt as passionately as I do about this. I needed to feel all those feels, and then I needed to get here. So it's not to say that you can necessarily shortcut a lot of frustration and grief and pain in this process of trying to figure out your dreams. But had somebody said, do you really want to do pet portraits? Is that really what you want? What if you could just say what you wanted? Somebody gave you the permission to just say exactly what you want, no matter how it was going to manifest. What would that look like? I don't know that I had the concept. I'm using all those same exact characters in almost the same exact form that they took back then on that drawing from all that time ago. The characters look the same. I didn't change my style or skill levels to the point where they're unrecognizable now. It's not like I started with a little stick figure, barely there kind of sketchy drawing. They were fully formed all the way back then. And if I can help somebody with a fully formed path and they're just not aware of themselves or what they want enough to be able to say that is the thing I want. I want to be the person. I'll be the one person, if there's no one else, to ask that question for you and make you really, really answer it. Hold you accountable. That's going to be another theme, is accountability in this whole thing. Yeah. So we are just about done. I am going to come up with some like pithy, cool little intros and outros, but until then, this is the first episode, so of course it's going to be what it is, and I'll share this along with other people. I am going to email some people who I would love to have as guests who hopefully this isn't too intimidating. That's the other thing, is I'm not trying to scare people. I care so much. I care so much about so many people, and I want to help everyone, and I want everyone to be able to live their dreams and for them to be able to have their passion project. I think that would be great. So I will be sending off some emails right after this, and then I'm going to start working on my comic, because I kind of had this idea to restart this whole entire thing like at the end of last week. So this is kind of like a fast build up, but I plan on doing this. I have 90 different people I would love to do interviews with. And if I did one interview for every week, that's 90 weeks of if everyone said yes, and I was able to have a cool discussion with each person about their hopes and dreams, and that's a lot of content. And I would love to share people's stories with you, and I hope that you guys can join me in this journey and see what we can come up with together. And if all of this sounds interesting to you, I do have a Patreon. You didn't think that was gonna pop in, did you? But yes, so Colourisma is on Patreon. Trust me, I've had this set up for a long time. I've had all of the behind the scenes stuff set up since 2014 for Colourisma. So I was able to quickly rebrand a little bit, do some new graphics, and then toss it out there. So I got Patreon. You got patreon.com/Colourisma. I do the thing with the U because I got reasons. Anyway, so that's Colourisma on Patreon. You can Google it if you feel like it. Right now, it is set up for paid per video, but I am debating doing monthly. If you have an opinion on that, let me know. I typically do monthly on my other Patreon, which is patreon.com/SharReed. And yes, so if you have an idea on that one, this one's per video per one of these videos, which I'm planning on doing one a week, so that's about 4 a month. And yes, so of course this is a YouTube video, so I will end with like, share, and subscribe. Actually, I won't do that, because guess what? I'm going to do something different. Only like this if you really like this. Only subscribe if you're really interested in finding your dreams and discovering your passion. If you don't, scroll, go, it's cool. It's good. If you stayed here for an hour and listened to all this, thank you. And if you feel like you can get something from either myself or someone in the future who shares their story, awesome. Only then, like, share, subscribe. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.